Hi, my name is Dale Maley. In this short video, I'm going to explain how I was able to fix my DeWalt Model 734 planer. I bought this planer new in 2012, so since it's 2025, it's 13 years old now. It's always been kept in a climate-controlled basement in my workshop. 95% of the time, I'm planing wood between 1/8 of an inch and 3/4 of an inch. Now occasionally, I do raise the cutting head up enough that I can get a vacuum hose inside and suck out all the chips. And occasionally I've lubricated the 2 threaded rods. I have never lubricated the 4 tubes. Recently the handles got harder to crank, but I was able to muscle through it, keep going. But the other day it completely stopped at about a 1/4 inch thickness, board thickness. I could lower it some, but I could not raise it anymore. So it's time to do something. So before I started tearing apart my planer, I went into YouTube to see if anybody else had a similar problem and a fix. I only found about one guy that had a similar problem, and he ended up completely gutting his planer. Then he cleaned out the parts, lubed them up, and all of a sudden it started to move again. But he had to use woodworking clamps just to get it to start to move. Then he had, of course, had to reassemble everything he took apart. So I got a little bit worried. Am I going to have to gut my planer also? So I'm a retired engineer, so I have to draw a sketch of what we're working on. So here's my rendition of what the DeWalt planer looks like, the basics. And you crank the right-hand side. It's connected to a threaded rod. Then underneath, you can't see it until you turn it over, but underneath there's 2 sprockets and a chain, and they make the left-hand threaded rod turn at the same time as the right-hand side. Then there's also 4 tubes or posts, vertical, shown in light green here. Each of those has an upper and lower bearing, so we have a total of 8 bearings involved. So looking at my illustration, I started to wonder what could be the potential root causes of the main assembly sticking. Well, the first is the threaded rods could be rusty, and I think there's some YouTube videos of guys with rusty rods. That's not the case with me. The 4 tubes could be rusty and they bind on their bearings. One or both of those sprockets, chain sprockets, could have slipped on their threaded rods. That caused it to bind. It could be a foreign object somehow got in there is blocking travel. Or those 8 tube bearings, they might have some build-up deposits and residue stopping it from easily moving. So the first thing I did was unplug the unit electrically, and I removed it from its stand. I then turned the unit onto its side so I could see underneath, and I checked those sprockets, 2 sprockets in the chain, and there was nothing obviously wrong with them. The 2 Allen screws that hold the 2 sprockets on, I checked them and their Allen screws were still tight. And I could see when I cranked the one rod, the other one did move okay. So I decided to go ahead and remove the top case, which requires 4 bolts and their metric Allen wrench bolts. Once I got the top case off, I used my shop vac to suck out all the wood chips and sawdust in the unit. I even took a dental pick and got some of the hard to get at debris out. I used a shop rag to clean all 4 tubes up. Then I squirted some WD-40 onto all 8 bearings on the 4 posts. I lubricated both threaded rods also. And then after letting it soak a few minutes, all of a sudden the unit started to operate properly up and down. Hooray! So let's switch over to a video that I made of the actual unit. So I took the case off the unit. Then I found a lot of sawdust and chips down at the bottom of the 4 posts. So I cleaned that with a shop vac. I even took a dental pick and went in these areas where there was chips hidden back in here and the other side, and basically got all the chips off that I could. Then I took just a plain old shop towel and I cleaned all the bars. Now my bars are not, the 4 bars are not rusted at all, and the threaded ones are in pretty good shape too. And this has been in my basement since 2012 in a heated and air-conditioned environment, so you would not expect to find any rust on the post, and I really didn't find any. Once I got everything cleaned off, I took WD-40 and I sprayed it above the bearings. Each of the 4 posts, each one of them has 2 bearings, an upper and a lower. And I sprayed those. I also sprayed the rods. I sprayed the threads too, but I don't think that really mattered. And I also did, all 4 tubes. And as soon as I did that, I put the crank back on the top temporarily. And as you can see, now it works freely, just like it did when it was brand new. So the only thing I can think of why mine bound up, and when it bound up, it was way down, less than a 1/4 inch in board height and planing height. And it would go down a little bit, but it would bind up going up. And 95% of my usage is probably between 1/8 and 3/4 inch on the boards. Once in a great while, I'll plane a 2x4 or something more than 3/4, but so that means these bearings are only riding in a very small location down there near the bottom. Anyway, I was pleasantly surprised. Once I cleaned everything up and lubricated it with WD-40, it now appears to be working just fine. As you can tell, it takes almost no effort to crank it down. I've got it set at a 1/4 inch height on the little set piece on the side here. We'll take her on down until we hit the stop. Oh, there's the stop. Now let's go back up. Just make sure everything's okay. It still is. We're probably back up to 3/4 now. So, turned out it wasn't too bad a job to actually fix my stuck planer. So I have planed a lot of common pine, which always has some resin in it. And over a period of time, I've noticed the 2 rubber rollers slip quite a bit. So it's a good time to inspect them with the case off and the unit turned sideways. I found a lot of resin on the rollers. So I took some mineral spirits in my shop rag and I rubbed it good, and it quickly removed all the residue. I did take a wet shop rag and just kind of washed it afterwards to remove any of the mineral spirit residue. I think it completely evaporates, but I don't know, so I gave it a little coat of water. Reassembled the unit, ran a test board, and the planer worked great. So some closing thoughts on this project. Boy, I was sure happy. It turned out I did not have to completely gut my planer like the other guy. All I had to do was remove the case and then clean and lubricate the 4 vertical tubes with their 8 bearings. I think the likely root cause of why it was sticking was there was residue and debris built up on some of those 8 bearings that are on the 4 tubes. So in summary, this short video explains how I was able to repair my DeWalt Model 734 planer when the height adjustment was stuck. Hopefully this video helps you with your planer or your similar projects. I hope you enjoyed the video, and please subscribe. Thank you.